Imagine this: a peaceful afternoon, a simple interaction between a black woman and a police officer. What starts as a routine stop quickly turns into something much darker. This cop, fueled by anger and prejudice, insults and humiliates her in front of everyone. He uses his power to handcuff her, all while she remains calm and composed. But just 10 minutes later, something no one expected happens. In a shocking twist, the same officer who treated her with such disrespect suddenly finds himself on his knees at her feet, begging for forgiveness. Why? What could possibly have caused such a dramatic change in this man's attitude? This isn't just a story of a racially charged encounter. It's a story of power, humility, and redemption, and it leaves us asking, what made this officer change his mind? Was it guilt, realization, or something else entirely? Stick around as we dive into this extraordinary moment, exploring what happens when two very different people are forced to confront the truth, their biases, and the weight of their actions. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this story unfolds. Stay tuned. To understand what happened next, we need to go back to the beginning. The woman, let's call her Mia, was simply going about her day when she was pulled over by the officer. At first, it seemed like just another routine traffic stop. But from the moment the officer stepped out of his car, there was a tension in the air. His tone was sharp, his words cutting, as he demanded Mia's license and registration. She remained calm, trying to keep the situation from escalating, but it was clear something was off. The officer's gaze never left her, his body language hostile. As Mia explained that she was in a hurry and didn't mean to cause any trouble, the officer's insults started pouring out. "You people always think you can get away with everything," he spat, his words full of venom. The anger in his voice was palpable. Mia was taken aback, but instead of reacting with anger, she stayed composed, refusing to let the officer provoke her. But then, in a move that shocked onlookers, he slapped the cuffs on her wrists, rough and unceremonious. No explanation, no justification, just a clear display of power. She was powerless to do anything as he shoved her into the back of the squad car. What happened next? The officer's sudden change was just as puzzling as his earlier behavior. Why was he begging for her forgiveness? What caused him to completely flip? Stay with me as we uncover the layers of this shocking encounter. As Mia sat in the back of the squad car, the cold metal of the cuffs biting into her wrists, the world outside felt like it was moving in slow motion. Her mind raced. She'd done nothing wrong. She had followed the rules, been polite, but none of that seemed to matter now. The officer's words replayed in her mind, over and over, each insult like a hammer hitting her sense of justice. The feeling of helplessness, the sting of racism, and the anger at the system swelled inside her, but she refused to let it control her. Mia knew the risks of reacting in a moment like this, especially with an officer who was clearly looking for any reason to escalate the situation. From the officer's side, things were equally tense. Officer Mitchell had been working this beat for years, but lately it felt like the world was changing beneath his feet. The headlines, the protests, the growing awareness of police brutality. It was hard to ignore the anger brewing in the streets. But in his mind, he was just doing his job. He didn't see Mia as a person. She was just another suspect to deal with. He was tired, frustrated, and maybe a little too quick to judge. But when he slapped the cuffs on her, something inside him twisted. He couldn't explain it. He wasn't the type to feel guilt, not like this. Yet, every time he looked at her, he saw something that didn't fit his view of the world. Her quiet defiance in the face of his aggression confused him. There was no fear in her eyes, no begging, just a calm that rattled him to his core. That calm unsettled him in a way he couldn't put into words. By the time he finished processing her, Mia was still in the back of the car, her silence louder than anything he could say. But something was gnawing at him. He needed a reason to justify what he'd done, a way to make it seem like he hadn't crossed a line. But deep down, he knew he had. The moment the cuffs went on, something had shifted, and now he couldn't escape the feeling that the real crime wasn't Mia's, but his own. The guilt started creeping in, but he pushed it down, until it was almost too much to ignore. When he finally approached the car again, it wasn't to give her a ticket or further explain his actions. It was something more, something almost foreign. He opened the door and, without a word, dropped to his knees. His hands shook as he looked up at her. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Mia stared at him, unsure if she was dreaming or if the reality of the situation had truly shifted. What had caused this transformation? Was it a sudden burst of empathy, a moment of clarity, or something else? And most importantly, how would Maya respond to this strange and unexpected change in the power dynamic? There was still so much to unravel, so much tension hanging in the air between them. Mia's heart pounded in her chest as she stared down at Officer Mitchell, still kneeling in front of her, his eyes full of something she couldn't quite place. It was almost like he was pleading with her. No, begging. She could feel the weight of his gaze, and it sent a shiver down her spine. The last 10 minutes felt like a lifetime. The rage that had burned in her just moments ago was now replaced by confusion. Was this some kind of trick? Was this a moment of weakness he was trying to exploit? Her mind raced with questions. What had shifted in him so quickly? Was this some kind of act, a manipulation to regain control? Or was he genuinely ashamed? Mia had seen the news, heard the stories of police officers who'd used their positions to intimidate and harm people, especially people who looked like her. She had no reason to believe that this was anything but another case of an officer trying to cover his tracks. But there was something different in his eyes, something raw and vulnerable. It was unsettling. Was it possible that this officer, this man who had just moments ago insulted her, humiliated her, could really feel remorse? Was it possible he was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time? The silence between them grew thick, the weight of his apology hanging in the air. It was so heavy, Mia could hardly breathe. Every part of her wanted to speak, to shout, to demand an explanation, but she held herself back. Something inside her knew that whatever came next could change everything, not just for her, but for him too. Officer Mitchell's hands were still shaking as he looked up at her, his voice barely audible. "I don't know what's happening to me," he muttered, his words almost lost in the stillness. "I've been wrong all along. I never saw it. I never saw you. Mia's throat tightened, but she couldn't find the words to respond. She could feel the tension building, thick and heavy like a storm that was about to break. She wasn't sure whether to feel pity, anger, or something else entirely. She just wanted answers. She needed to understand what had made this man, this officer who had wielded his power over her without a second thought, now kneel before her, vulnerable and remorseful. But in that moment, something strange started to happen. The crowd that had gathered around to watch, some with their phones out, others simply witnessing the scene, began to murmur. Whispers of disbelief, shock, and judgment filled the air, and Mia realized they were watching, waiting, expecting some kind of resolution. The officer's knees were starting to give out from the weight of his position, and he had yet to stand. The murmurs grew louder. People were talking, some with sympathy, others with skepticism, questioning whether this was a genuine change or just another moment of public spectacle. But as the tension thickened, it became clear that the decision of how this would end wasn't just in Officer Mitchell's hands anymore. It was in Mia's. Her response, whatever it was, would have consequences, not just for her, but for him too. Would she show him mercy? Or would she call him out, forcing him to face the full weight of his actions? Whatever happened next would decide the course of their paths and the world watching them. The clock seemed to slow, and for a moment, time itself hung in the balance. The air was electric, charged with anticipation. But Mia stayed silent, the world holding its breath, as the tension reached its breaking point. Just as Mia's silence stretched on, heavy and pregnant with the weight of decision, something unexpected happened. The sound of a car engine cut through the tension, its roar cutting through the stillness like a siren. From the corner of her eye, Mia caught the flashing lights of another squad car pulling up behind them. At first, she thought nothing of it, assuming it was another officer coming to back up Mitchell. But as the car came to a stop, the door flew open with a force that made Mia jump. A second officer, young and brash, stepped out, his face already twisted in frustration. He barely even looked at Mia, focusing entirely on Mitchell. "What the hell is going on here, Mitchell?" The new officer barked, his voice harsh and authoritative. "Get up. Now." The shift in energy was instant. Mitchell looked up at the new officer, his face pale, still kneeling but no longer with the same raw emotion that had just moments ago caused him to beg for Mia's forgiveness. The new officer's eyes narrowed as he looked from Mitchell to Mia, then back to his partner, confusion flashing across his face. "What are you doing? You're supposed to be taking control, not apologizing to some suspect." Mia could see the tension building between the two men. Officer Mitchell's shoulders tensed, and for the first time, she saw the crack in his confidence. He wasn't just battling his own guilt. Now, it was as if he was facing an entirely different threat. The younger officer's presence seemed to undermine everything Mitchell had just said to her. "You don't understand," Mitchell muttered, his voice strained. I can't keep doing this. The younger officer cut him off with a sharp, dismissive gesture. "You're losing it, Mitchell. Get up, or I'll handle this myself." But it wasn't just the words that had Mia's heart racing. It was the cold shift in the atmosphere. The crowd, once whispering with disbelief, was now quiet, watching this new development with bated breath. Mia felt her pulse quicken, a knot forming in her stomach. This wasn't just about her anymore. Mitchell wasn't the only one in danger of losing everything. This was bigger. Mia's eyes flicked between the two officers. She could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of the moment bearing down on her. If the situation escalated further, who would be the one to pay the price? Mitchell's eyes locked on hers once again, but this time there was fear in them. It wasn't the defiance or anger he had shown earlier, but a deeper fear of what might happen next, not just for him, but for both of them. He was no longer in control, and that realization seemed to unsettle him more than anything else. His partner was a reminder that in this world, change wasn't always welcomed. The younger officer stepped forward, pulling his own set of handcuffs from his belt. "I'm taking over here," he said, his voice cold. "You've made a mistake, and I'm cleaning it up." Mia felt a chill run down her spine. What did that mean? Was Mitchell's moment of regret just an illusion? Was the second officer here to shut it down, to make sure nothing threatened the status quo? Her stomach churned as she realized everything she thought she understood about this moment, about what Mitchell had been feeling, could be ripped away in an instant. The stakes had just gotten a lot higher, and now she wasn't just caught in a power struggle between her and one officer. The system, the forces that shaped these men's actions, were all playing a part in what was about to unfold. Her heart raced. What would happen next? Would Mitchell stand his ground and fight for change, or would he crumble under the weight of his partner's cold authority? Would she have any voice in the matter at all? The crowd was waiting for something to happen, but what they didn't know was that Mia's next move could shatter everything. The tension in the air was suffocating. The younger officer, his eyes locked on Mitchell with disdain, was already advancing, ready to make his move. Mia could feel the shift in power, the gravity of the situation closing in around her. Her stomach churned as the realization set in. This wasn't just a moment of personal reckoning for Mitchell. The entire system was watching, ready to pounce. Mitchell's hands trembled as he slowly pushed himself to his feet, his gaze still fixed on Mia. It was clear now that the apology he'd offered wasn't enough to stop the younger officer from taking control. But there was something in Mitchell's eyes, something that hadn't been there before, the slightest flicker of resolve. He wasn't going to let the system swallow him whole, not without a fight. "Mia," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I don't know if I can fix this, but I want to try." Before Mia could process his words, the younger officer reached out and grabbed Mitchell by the arm, jerking him around. "You're done," he said sharply, his grip tightening. "This is how it works. Get out of my way." For a brief, suspended moment, everything seemed to freeze. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Then, without warning, Mitchell jerked his arm free, his face set with an unfamiliar determination. "You don't get it, do you?" Mitchell's voice was strong now, louder than before. He stood taller, the fear from earlier replaced by something else. Anger, perhaps, or a need to reclaim his dignity. "It's not just about us anymore. It's about everyone. It's about change." Mia's heart raced. She didn't know what was happening between these two officers, but for the first time, it felt like Mitchell wasn't just struggling with himself. He was battling something bigger, something systemic.